Over the past few years, a growing number of people in Canada and the United States have been calling for the legalization of the widely used yet illegal drug known as cannabis or marijuana. Is the prohibition of marijuana just a useless holdover from a prudish era, or are there measurable and hazardous repercussions to the use of marijuana?
Both. Inhaling smoke of just about any kind is hazardous. That doesn't justify laws against it. Alcohol, as we all know, is far more hazardous than marijuana, but we know that criminalizing it is not worth the cost. Aside from the fact that prohibition provided a business opportunity for organized crime, the central reason why the United States ended it was that it cost a tremendous amount to enforce and deprived people of an enormous source of tax revenue at a time when the country could least afford it. The same is true of marijuana prohibition.
Both libertarians and those political forces of the left have coalesced around this issue, claiming that legalization and regulation would afford better control of the drug than the enforcement of prohibition. The widespread utilization of cannabis and the messaging from proponents have resulted in much of society thinking that the recreational use of this drug is harmless.
I'm sure you'll find some hippies and maybe some naturopathic medicine advocates out there who will tell you that marijuana is completely harmless or even that it is good for you. This is all the more reason to legalize it so the revenue can be used to fund public awareness campaigns letting people know what the risks are. This is exactly what Colorado is doing.
Are the concerns of those who oppose legalization unfounded?
I don't think so. There are legitimate concerns. The problem is that none of these concerns justify the enormous cost of prohibition.
The growing body of evidence about the effects of cannabis use during adolescence is reason for concern. Equally concerning is the perception among many Canadian youth that cannabis is benign and has no effect on their ability to drive or their performance in school. I think we should be very concerned.
All the more reason to get it out of the hands of drug dealers and into the hands of legitimate businesses that check ID. There's no good reason to believe that legalizing marijuana will increase use among underage people. Marijuana use among teenagers in Colorado is lower now than it was before it was legalized. The Netherlands has one of the lower rates of teenage marijuana use in Europe.
Another organization, the Partnership for a Drug-Free Canada, in a 2015 report, stated, regardless of the THC content, the amount of tar inhaled by marijuana smokers and the level of carbon monoxide absorbed are 3 to 5 times greater than among tobacco smokers. We can add to these facts that the higher burning temperature of cannabis, combined with the manner in which it is smoked, causes increased loss of cilia in the lungs, leading to increases in rates of life-threatening emphysema. It is interesting to note that for years the Canadian Cancer Society has lobbied against tobacco smoking and has won widespread public support. Yet the same people who wisely oppose tobacco usage often seem not to care that in marijuana they have a substance found to be many times more deadly to the human lung.
If that's true, it's a great reason to stick to edibles. It's a piss-poor reason to criminalize marijuana.
Recreational marijuana is illegal in Canada for a good reason. It is harmful to its users and to the nation.
You just called out the hypocrisy of warning against the dangers of tobacco but not marijuana, so I'm calling you out for the hypocrisy of advocating the prohibition of marijuana but not tobacco.
It and other drugs like it rob the individual of potential and leave behind broken dreams and shattered lives.
Vastly more lives are shattered by the legal consequences of smoking marijuana than by the health consequences.
Political leaders ought to be driven by a sense of what is in the best interest of the nation and its future. Yet there are those who will compromise principles for political expediency. It is a tragedy when members of society, young or old, view getting high as their only pleasure.
It's a tragedy when they view getting drunk as their only pleasure. That is not a good argument for prohibition. I don't know if you've heard, but I do have a Patreon.